Hello, and I hope you're doing well. Welcome to my studio. Today we're going to go over some of the stuff that we did in painting last time, just to do a little bit of glazing over the top of it, and I'll walk you through and show you what that's going to look like. I got some new paint, some phthalo green yellow, which is kind of that bright green color. Maybe we'll try to add that to add some little highlights here and there, and add some, mostly it's going to be glazing today. So we're going to add some environmental haze and fog, kind of maybe push the distance back a little bit. Overall, I didn't want to do too much to the painting. I really liked how it turned out, but I think we can add a little bit more depth to it. So let's go ahead and get into that. Okay, so what we want to do is add some contrast between the background and the foreground. So in order to do that, this already has a pretty good a feeling of distance to it. Part of the problem that I have is in the clouds here. The gradient value between the foreground, which would be stuff closer to the top, the stuff at the top and the bottom of your canvas are traditionally things that are closer to you. The stuff around the horizon line is the stuff that's farthest back. So with that, there's generally a transition that goes from the top of your canvas, or the stuff that's closest to you, to the horizon line, or the stuff that's furthest away. So imagine a piece of paper that's kind of going at an angle. This stuff up here darker, the stuff down here lighter. So there's a gradient transition that needs to happen. And we kind of have that. You can see the light right here along the horizon line. And that's all fine and good. And overall, the value of how it's laid out, the dark and the light, the basic value of it is there. But I would like to see a little bit more transition. I would like to see this darkness right here in the clouds be just a little bit lighter. So when I go in, I'm going to add some titanium white and some Prussian blue, just a tiniest bit of Prussian blue, because Prussian blue is very, very powerful, to the titanium white, and get a white with a blue tint to it. And I want to add that right here, primarily right here on the horizon, and then we'll fade it off up into the clouds a little bit and just kind of blend it off into nothingness. And we'll bring some of that white down here, just behind this row of foliage right there. I would like to keep this row of foliage a little darker, with the exception of maybe this right here. And the reason for that is because you play off light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So here you see that this tree and this foliage is starting to compete value-wise with this background color here. And I'm going to try and make this black and white here for a second, just so that you can get a better idea of when I talk about value, this is what I'm talking about. You can see the grays in here, they're very, very close, and there's not too much distinction between them. And that's what we have to differentiate. When we talk about value, that's what we're talking about, the light and the dark. So we want to push this on the horizon and push that back a little bit, all the way up through this field that we have going here, and a little bit right here to help, again, it'll bring this darkness of this tree forward. And that's exactly what we want. And because this lighten this up a little bit right here, we can push it back. Now this can stay a little bit darker, and I want it to, because here, as you see, we have a highlight going on this bush here. Now if we start to lighten this, it's going to start to fight with this piece right here. And that's not what we want to do. So we want to maintain that darkness, and then that light. So we have light, dark, light, dark, and you can see how that plays on each other, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see it down here at the bottom as well. We have, you know, dark, light, dark, light, dark. So it's constantly going back and forth between these things. Okay, so here you see, this is what we're going to use to glaze the sky and the background, is some titanium white and Prussian blue. And you can see I've only got a tiniest bit of Prussian blue, and I'm not even going to use, well, I don't think I'm going to use all of that. I don't want it to be too blue. I don't want it to be a bluish tint of white. I don't want it to be light blue. And then I've got this is the phthalo yellow green. I said earlier there was phthalo green yellow. I guess it's phthalo yellow green. My mistake. You can see this is a nice bright green, and I may use some of this on the foreground or in the midground, just to add just a smidge of highlight right in there. And so, okay, so when you are doing a glaze, you need to dilute your paint just a little bit. So I'm just going to take a flat brush, a little bit of linseed oil and odorless mineral spirits. Glazes are a funny thing. Well, first of all, before you can glaze, you have to make sure that your painting is dry. This will not work if your painting is not dry, and this is dry. And the benefit of putting on the liquid, this stuff here, as a base coat on the canvas, is that the oil paint, as you put it on, mixes with the liquid, and it helps, it dries. And this dried probably in just a couple of days instead of a matter of weeks. So make sure that your painting is dry. And then the glaze, or how thin you make your glaze, it depends on what you're going to do. In some cases, for this, for example, I just want a hint of lightness and color. So I'm thinning down my glaze just a little bit. Some cases you can put it on straight out of the tube and then just wipe it off and leave whatever's left. That works especially well when you have textured areas or things like this where you have highs and lows. That the glaze is going to go on, and it's going to go into those highs. It's going to go into those low areas or places where it's deeper, closer to the canvas, and you'll wipe off the highs, or where the color is most built up, or the darker areas, which is what you want. Another thing that you want to keep in mind too is the transparency of your paint. Not all paints are created equal. Some paints are more transparent than others. Take the phthalo blue, for example, is a very transparent paint, where titanium white is very opaque. So another reason why I'm thinning down my titanium white is because it's opaque. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just going to be putting some paint where I want to push back. It looks like I'm putting it on pretty thick right now, and I'm not, because again, this stuff is just going to get all wiped off, or the majority is going to get wiped off and blended in. So you just take some towel, okay. You're not scrubbing. Don't scrub. The paint that we did put on here originally is on relatively thin, and you can take it off. What you're trying to do now is just blend it in and push back. I'm just using my finger here just to blend a little bit more in some of those areas. And here where it's actually in the same level as this other grove of trees right here, I want to try and get a nice transition. A harder edge on this side because this is more directly in the foreground. And I like a little bit of a distinction. You can see like right there, there's a little bit of white paint buildup. And it's just because there's a glob of, let's say a glob, there's just a little bit of paint from the green, from the background trees that's there. So I just dipped my towel into a little bit of odorless mineral spirits and just got it in there, just thin it out a little bit, just so that I can come in here and just kind of work it in a little bit to kind of smooth it. Then you're just working it. Again, try not to scrub because you will start to get into the undercolor if you're not careful, and you don't want to remove that completely. You want it to come through that white, and so you can see that's really been pushed back there, and which allows this grove of trees and foliage right here to really come forward, and we just separated that quite a lot. I would like to go into the clouds maybe a little bit more and just lighten them up just a little. And I'm just using my finger. Now, just a little bit of paint on my finger. Now, I want to caution you in doing this. Maybe some people prefer to use gloves when doing this, and that's fine. It's not all paints are created equal, and like I mentioned before, and some are toxic. So your cadmium yellows, for example, not a good thing that you want to necessarily come in contact with your skin. So keep that in mind. Some paints, cadmiums, cobalts, are things that you really want to limit exposure to. A lot of the rest of these, they're just basic pigments, and the binder is generally linseed oil. So it's not really going to hurt anything at all. Just keep that in mind. It's a little bit of knowledge. Inform yourself on the different kinds of paints that you use. Educate yourself on the different kind of paints that you use, and just be aware. There. So now you see there, especially right here, right along this underside of this cloud, we've what looks like more like a cloud ceiling. You get some of the bounce light from the land that's going to come back up and hit the underside of the clouds. So we have this kind of glow right here, which is really going to help with this transition from foreground to background. Really pushes that back. I like that. I think that looks pretty good. And we can do that kind of thing wherever we want. Wherever you need to kind of sit your cloud down just a little bit, you can put a little bit of that bounce light in. and it should work. He'll round out your clouds a little bit, add a little bit of depth. Put it on, take it off. Put it on, take it off. There we go. Okay, so we're doing pretty good. Now, I think this may be a short video. That was the biggest part that I wanted to do. I wanted to add some background. I want to push that background back just a little bit and soften this transition here just a little bit. Cut this tree in like that. So now you can see that this tree really comes forward. And maybe this grove of trees or brushes or shrubbery foliage right here stops, and maybe this is just a little bit further back. So it's up to you. It's up to the viewer really to decide what it is that you're seeing. What does it look like to you? How is it? How are you interpreting what this is? This yellow is a little bit too yellow for me, I think. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that white, and I'm just going to mute that just a little. Rub that in. It looks better, more of a glow instead of be as harsh as what it was. We'll just take some of that paint and just bring it a little bit all over the place just to softening it, just make it look part of the clouds. Just liven that up just a little bit. There, good. All right, so now, not a whole lot. These two tones right here, I feel are combating or fighting with each other a little bit for attention. So as you can see right here, we have this yellow, this lightened yellow, ochre, green, Prussian blue, white mixture, a little bit of everything. Put right here, and it lightens up and it makes this come forward a little bit. But this part up here, a little bit is losing the fight right here. So I would like to add a little bit of this phthalo yellow green. I don't think we're going to use too much of it. We'll just put a little bit. I've never used this before. I'm not exactly sure how strong it is, but we're going to find out here real quick. So this is straight out of the tube. I'm getting some on my palette knife. Just put some right there on my palette knife, and I put a little bit up there. I don't know if it shows up on canvas, but I think it's still too dark. What I may have to do is just put a little bit of this blue white with it, our blue white mixture, just to lighten it up a little bit. I don't want it to. The more white you put in, the more you're going to desaturate the color, and that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. That's a little bit better. And then we'll come in on the other side as well. There, just a little bit, just to brighten up that area right there. All right, now the last thing that I want to do is this brown area right here. I would like that to see a little bit of sun. I'm taking some Van Dyke brown. That's the same color that we used last time, the same brown that we used last time. We didn't mix our own brown, we just used Van Dyke brown. And I'm going to take some titanium white, a bit of Van Dyke brown, and what I want to do is I want to make a nice bright or a light tan color, lighter than what's already up there. So I'll take some of this blue-white mixture that we have, try not to let paint go to waste. Plus, it helps to homogenize the color palette that you used, and as you use the colors all throughout your painting. So that's good. It's what you want. So let's see. Yeah, that's nice. And we'll put some on there and just let it break. Don't go too heavy-handed with this. Just come right across. And again, don't worry about painting over the trees, because you can wipe it right off. And then put some right on the edge, just so I can get a thinner line. And just put a hint right back here. Take a paper towel and just wipe off some of that. And if you have to, you can always go back in with some fresh paint. I just rinse my brush off in some mineral spirits. And I'm just using that solvent to loosen that paint up. And then I can just wipe it off. Just like that. There, that's looking pretty good. The last thing I want to do is just another couple touches. You see, I just put a small line on the edge of my palette knife there, and then I can just get a more controlled touch. You see that on there? Just right there. Just a small, where the sunlight is just kissing the top of that hill, how the line breaks. And why you would do that would be to help separate the lay of the land. So in this part right here, we have the brush strokes kind of coming in and down at an angle. And then on this side, we have brush strokes kind of going this way. So they start to intersect, and that's what helps put these things together. Makes them flow a little bit nicer together. There, let that hit that. So we have sunlight hitting in different areas. It just makes it look nice. Not so uniform. Different areas, different values going on. And it's up to you to really put this together how you see fit. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's what makes sense to you, really. What does your world look like? The only thing that I recommend is that as you get some things, there's some technical things that you want to consider, obviously. So I mean, I guess there is some wrong to it, but where hills are, where breaks are. Like for example, we put this highlight in here, have it go behind this bush. It's going to do a couple of things. It's going to help bring this bush and everything forward, and it's going to help create that illusion of greater detail in the background as you see things start flowing one way, then flowing the other. It's just going to benefit you and your work in the long run. The more that you can make the viewer look and question and wonder about your work, about what they see. It doesn't have to be this specific thing. I painted an apple, so that's what you see is an apple. Well, what if we painted this and then I just put some white spots way off in the background on a dark background? Maybe they're to one person it may just be an oops of paint. Another person maybe buildings or a small village or something like that way off in the background. So it's open to interpretation, and let that interpretation happen. I was playing with a little bit of value, just so this is necessarily a solid color. I just added a little bit of white to that green, that yellow green, pale yellow green. Just enough to brighten it up just a little bit. And then when I put it on, you can just see that it just kisses it just a little bit. And I think I like this. So for the most part, I think that I think we're able to call this one finished. Again, like I said, it was pretty quick. Just some glazing that we did. Remember, depending on the paint that you use, the opacity of the paint is going to determine how much you need to thin it down. The more transparent paints that you have, the better off your glazing is probably going to be. And you can build up glazes. You don't have to do just one layer of glaze. You can put this on, let it dry completely, and then put on more if you want to put on more glazes. If you want to warm up the background and the sky, for example, we can just let this dry completely, and then we can come on and just completely cover the background and the sky with a nice transparent paint, wipe it off, blend it down to the tone that we want, and just keep building color after color after color, layer after layer after layer. Some of the old masters had as many as 60 something layers of glaze, and that's just how paintings were done. You would start with a value base or valued underpainting, whether it be a grisaille or what have you, gray, green, or brown underpainting, worked in value, and then on top of that, you would add glazes, layer after layer after layer of glazes, to get what you ultimately wanted. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this painting. I had a good time. I had a good time working on this one with you today. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Tell me what you want. Hit that notification bell. And I will see you for the next painting. Bye.